The fluorescent lights hummed above, harsh and unwelcoming, as every eye in the bank turned toward her. An elderly black woman, frail frame wrapped in a faded cardigan, stood trembling at the teller's counter. Her voice cracked, pleading, almost whispering, "Please, it's my money. I just need to withdraw enough for my medicine." But instead of compassion, she was met with suspicion. The teller leaned back, lips curling into something cold, dismissive. "Ma'am, this doesn't look right. Are you sure this account even belongs to you?" Her hand shook, clutching her worn purse tighter. A knot twisted in her stomach as humiliation burned across her cheeks. Somewhere behind her, someone laughed under their breath. The sound cut deeper than any knife. And then another sound, the slow scrape of a chair. Heavy boots crossing the floor, a presence rising in the room like a storm. It was Vin Diesel, his jaw clenched, his eyes locked on the teller. The air charged with silence, so sharp it could break glass. "Tell me, what would you do if the system designed to guard your dignity stripped it away in public, and only a stranger, one man, stood up against it?" Her name was Evelyn Johnson, 72 years old, born in Birmingham, Alabama, in a small wooden house that still smelled faintly of pine when she thought back on her childhood. To her neighbors, she was Miss Evelyn, the woman with the slow, warm smile and the hands that could soothe a crying baby with just one touch. Evelyn's mornings began with the sound of gospel radio, the faint hum of a kettle boiling, and the careful folding of her prayer shawl. Her apartment was small, 2 rooms in a crumbling brick building, but it was filled with life. Photographs of her children and grandchildren, faded but cherished, a tiny pot of violets on the windowsill, the smell of lavender soap she'd used since the 1970s. She lived on a fixed income, Social Security, a pension so small it barely covered rent and food. Every dollar was stretched, pinched, prayed over. Her joy was simple: walking to the corner store, greeting neighbors, and baking cornbread for Sunday service. And in her community, she was a quiet pillar. Kids called her Grandma Evelyn, running up the stairs just to get a piece of candy she always had ready. Mothers leaned on her for advice. And in the evenings, when the sun sank behind the housing blocks, her window glowed warmly, an unspoken promise that kindness still existed in a world that could often feel cruel. But Evelyn carried scars too, subtle ones, not the kind you saw, but the kind felt in silence. She remembered the bus rides where she had to sit in the back, the restaurants she couldn't walk into, the way white clerks in downtown stores used to watch her hands, as though she might steal something if they looked away. Decades later, that same look had never fully disappeared. Even now, as an old woman, she noticed it. The cashier who double-checked her bills more than others, the security guard whose eyes followed her just a little too long in the supermarket. They were small cuts, but cuts all the same. Still, Evelyn chose grace. She carried herself with dignity. "Don't let the world make you bitter," she would say. "We fought too hard to be here." But underneath her calm surface was a quiet worry. Her health had begun to falter. Arthritis in her knees, a shortness of breath on long walks. The doctor had prescribed medication, but it was expensive, too expensive. And so she planned carefully, counting and recounting bills, keeping her savings tucked in a modest bank account she had maintained faithfully for over 30 years. The bank itself was a symbol of trust to her, a place where her life's earnings, her dignity, and her independence were safeguarded. She remembered opening that account with her late husband, Harold, decades ago. They had walked into the branch hand in hand, believing, hoping, that the future would be kinder to their children. Evelyn believed in institutions, believed that if she followed the rules, kept her papers in order, and treated people with respect, then respect would be returned. But lately, there had been small warnings. She noticed how the younger tellers sighed impatiently when she fumbled with her reading glasses, how one clerk, a man in a crisp suit, had once spoken to her as though she were a child. "Now, ma'am, are you sure you know your account number?" She had laughed it off at the time, but in the quiet of her apartment, it stung. Those moments gathered like storm clouds. And on that particular morning, the day she walked into the bank needing to withdraw just enough for her medication, the air already felt heavier. The streets seemed louder. Even the sun was hidden behind gray clouds, as though the world knew what was coming. Evelyn clutched her purse, rehearsing in her mind what she would say. She always tried to be polite. "Good morning. I'd like to make a withdrawal, please." Simple, clear. She couldn't know then that what awaited her inside was not just an errand, but a trial of dignity, a test of her faith in the very system she had trusted her whole life. And that day, sitting in the corner of the bank, unnoticed at first, was a man she never expected to see. A man who would change everything. Vin Diesel. Evelyn pushed open the heavy glass door of the bank, the metallic clang echoing louder than usual. The place smelled of disinfectant and polished marble. The air conditioning blasted too cold against her frail body, making her clutch her cardigan tighter. She steadied herself, her cane tapping softly against the shiny tile floor as she stepped into the line. To her left, two young men in business suits scrolled on their phones. Behind her, a mother scolded her toddler for pulling on her purse. Evelyn stood patiently, purse pressed close to her chest, the withdrawal slip already filled in with her careful, looping handwriting. She rehearsed again in her mind. "Good morning. I'd like to withdraw $80. Enough for her medication. Enough to make it through the month. When her turn came, she shuffled to the counter. The teller, a young white woman with sharp eyeliner and a stiff posture, barely looked up. "Yes." Evelyn's voice trembled. "Good morning. I'd like to make a withdrawal, please." She slid the slip forward. The teller picked it up, eyes narrowing. "Account number?" "I wrote it down right there," Evelyn said softly. The teller sighed, typing slowly, then frowned. "This doesn't look right. You're trying to withdraw $80. "Yes, ma'am. That's correct." The woman's tone sharpened. "Do you have identification?" "Yes, of course." Evelyn pulled out her worn leather wallet and carefully handed over her state ID. The edges were frayed, the picture faded, but it was valid. She had renewed it just last year. The teller stared, then leaned back. "This doesn't look like you." Evelyn blinked. It is me. I renewed it in 2024. The teller raised her voice slightly, just enough for others in line to overhear. "Well, I can't be too sure. We've had a lot of fraud cases lately." The words sliced through Evelyn. Fraud, as though she were a thief. Her stomach knotted. She glanced back, saw the businessmen shifting, the mother shaking her head. She felt the weight of their eyes, their silent judgments. She swallowed hard. "Ma'am, I've banked here for over 30 years. Please, it's my money." The teller's lips curled. "That may be, but I can't process this until we verify further." She snapped her fingers toward the manager's desk. "Mr. Callahan?" The manager, a tall, broad-shouldered man in a navy suit, strode over. He was white, middle-aged, with the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. He glanced at Evelyn, then at the ID, then at the teller. "What seems to be the issue?" "She's trying to withdraw cash." "The ID looks questionable." Evelyn felt her cheeks burn. Her knees wobbled. She tightened her grip on the counter. "Sir, please. I'm just trying to get enough for my medicine. I've been a customer here for decades. You can look it up." The manager barely glanced at her. His voice was cold. "Ma'am, we can't just hand out cash to anyone. Procedure is procedure." Anyone. The word hung in the air like poison. Her heart raced. She felt her chest tighten, her breath coming shorter. She looked around the room, faces staring, whispering. She thought she saw a young man smirk. She thought she heard someone murmur, "Probably a scam." The walls seemed to close in. The hum of the fluorescent lights grew louder, almost deafening. Evelyn tried again, her voice shaking but resolute. "I have my bank card. My signature is on file. Please, I need this money." But the manager shook his head, folding his arms. "You'll have to wait. We'll need to do a deeper verification check. Could take a few days." "A few days?" Evelyn whispered. "Sir, I don't have a few days." The teller's lips twitched upward in something dangerously close to amusement. The humiliation was unbearable now. Tears welled in her eyes. Her whole body shook. She wanted to vanish, to sink into the marble floor. The crowd silence screamed louder than any shout, and that's when the sound of boots echoed across the room. From the corner, where he had been quietly filling out a deposit slip, Vin Diesel stood. His massive frame seemed to darken the room. Every head turned. His jaw was tight, his eyes burning. He had been watching. Every word, every gesture. He stepped forward, slow and deliberate, each stride like a drumbeat in Evelyn's chest. He stopped beside her, towering over the counter, and looked straight at the manager. "Is there a problem here?" His voice was low, gravelly, but it carried across the room like thunder. The manager stiffened. "This is none of your concern, sir. We're following protocol." Vin didn't blink. "Protocol? Looks more like intimidation to me." The teller shifted uncomfortably. The murmurs in the room grew louder, a ripple of unease. Evelyn clutched her purse tighter, tears spilling down her cheeks now, not just from shame, but from the shock of someone finally standing beside her. The atmosphere had shifted. No longer silent complicity, but tension, like the air before a storm breaks. This was the point of no return. The moment Evelyn's private humiliation became public. The bank was no longer a sanctuary. It was an arena with every eye watching, every heart pounding. And from here, there would be no going back. The bank was silent, yet alive with tension. Every second stretched like a rubber band pulled to its limit, ready to snap. Evelyn stood at the counter, shoulders hunched, tears streaking down her wrinkled face. Her trembling hand rested on the edge of the cold marble, knuckles white. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, each breath sharp and uneven. She felt the taste of salt on her lips, bitter, humiliating. The manager's jaw tightened. "Sir," he said firmly, addressing Vin Diesel, "I don't know who you think you are, but this woman's credentials are questionable. I have to protect this bank." Vin leaned in, his shadow stretching across the counter, his voice a low rumble. "Protect the bank or protect your prejudice?" Gasps rippled through the lobby. Someone dropped a pen. A child whispered to his mother. The room felt charged, as if every molecule in the air was vibrating. Evelyn closed her eyes, her mind spinning, the words around her blurred. She heard her late husband's voice echo in her memory. "Always keep your dignity, Evelyn, even when the world tries to strip it away." But her dignity now felt crushed under the weight of those accusing stares. She wanted to scream, to shout, to ask them, "Do you not see me? Do you not know my life?" Instead, her body betrayed her. A cold sweat broke across her forehead. Her knees buckled. The cane clattered to the floor with a sharp, echoing crack. Gasps again. She was falling. Vin caught her just before she collapsed fully. His massive arms wrapped around her frail frame, steadying her. The sound of her rapid heartbeat pounded against his chest. He looked down at her trembling form, then up at the crowd, his face a storm. "Enough!" The word roared out of him, shaking the silence. He turned on the manager, voice rising now, sharp as steel. "This is a 72-year-old woman. She has more history in this bank than you've had in your entire career. And you," he jabbed a finger at the teller, "you looked at her ID and saw not a customer, but a criminal. Why? Because she's old? Because she's black?" The room was utterly still. The fluorescent lights hummed louder, the air thick with shame. The manager sputtered, his authority unraveling under the weight of so many watching eyes. That's not what this is about." Vin cut him off, his voice booming. "No, that's exactly what this is about. The system is so blind to its own bias. It calls dignity fraud. It calls trust suspicious. It turns someone's life savings into a weapon against them. Do you hear yourselves?" Evelyn, still weak, whispered hoarsely, "Please, I just need my medicine." Her voice broke like glass. Her words shattered the last offensive silence in the room. A woman from the line stepped forward. "She's right. I've seen her here for years." Another man added, "She's always polite. This isn't right." Murmurs of agreement spread like wildfire. The manager's face flushed crimson. The teller looked down, suddenly ashamed. But the damage was already done. Evelyn's tears streamed freely now, her soul feeling laid bare. She wasn't just humiliated. She was broken open before strangers, forced to beg for what should have been hers without question. Her life, her dignity, her years of quiet obedience to rules and systems, mocked in an instant. She felt the collapse not only in her body, but in her spirit. For the first time in decades, she questioned if all her faith, in institutions, in progress, in humanity, had been misplaced. And then Vin's voice cut through the fog, firm but almost tender now, as he leaned close enough for her alone to hear. They don't define you. You do. Those words, simple, grounded, became an anchor in the storm. The room seemed to hold its breath. Every sound, the shuffle of shoes, the scribble of a pen, the thud of Evelyn's cane against the floor, echoed like thunder in the silence that followed. And in that unbearable stillness, the truth lay bare. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a public unmasking of how fragile dignity can be when prejudice poisons the very structures meant to uphold it. Evelyn wept quietly in Vin's arms, not just for herself, but for every moment of her life that had led to this humiliation. This was more than a transaction. It was a breaking point. The bank slowly emptied after the confrontation, but the weight of what happened lingered in the air like smoke after a fire. Evelyn sat on a small chair near the lobby wall, her cane back in her hand, her breathing steadier now, but her spirit still trembling. Vin Diesel crouched beside her, a mountain of strength folding down to meet her fragile frame. His voice was low, gentle now. Do you want to call someone? Family? A friend? Evelyn shook her head slowly. No, I just need to get home. Her voice was tired, drained of the warmth it once carried. The teller avoided her gaze. The manager retreated into his office, blinds pulled shut. The silence of their absence was deafening. A bank security guard brought Evelyn a small paper cup of water. She held it with shaking hands, sipping slowly. Around her, the bystanders who had witnessed everything avoided eye contact. Some looked ashamed. Others simply hurried out, eager to forget what they had seen. But Evelyn would not forget. She could not. That night, in her tiny apartment, she sat by the window with her violet plant, staring at the streetlights. The familiar gospel songs on her radio played, but tonight they offered little comfort. She thought about all the times she had believed, truly believed, that if she just worked hard, played by the rules, trusted the system, it would protect her. But the truth was laid bare. The system had not protected her. It had humiliated her in public, in broad daylight. She touched the photo of her late husband, Harold. You always said to keep my dignity, she whispered. But what do I do when the world takes it from me? Her tears fell silently, soaking the frame. Across town, the story spread. Someone in the bank had recorded the scene on their phone. The trembling of Evelyn's voice, the cold dismissal of the teller in Vin Diesel's booming defense. By the next morning, clips were circulating online. People watched, outraged. Comments flooded in. This is heartbreaking. How could they treat her like this? This isn't just about one woman. This happens every day. But Evelyn didn't see the videos. She didn't scroll through comments. She simply moved slower, spoke softer, and carried a heaviness in her chest that wouldn't lift. Her neighbors noticed. The children who used to run up for candy found her door closed more often. Her Sunday cornbread went unbaked. The warmth of Miss Evelyn dimmed, because humiliation doesn't just end when the moment passes. It lingers. It rewrites how you see yourself. Vin checked on her days later, knocking softly on her door. When she opened it, her eyes were swollen from crying, but she managed a small smile. You didn't have to come, she said softly. I did, Vin replied, because the fight isn't over. What happened to you? It's part of something bigger, and people need to see it. Evelyn nodded, though her eyes glistened. She knew he was right. This wasn't just her story. It was a story of countless others who had walked into banks, schools, hospitals, only to be treated not as equals, but as suspects. She placed a trembling hand on his. Promise me, don't let them forget. Vin looked her in the eyes. I won't. And neither should we. Because Evelyn's story is not just hers. It is a reflection of a world where systemic racism hides behind protocol, where age and skin color become silent verdicts before a word is spoken. What would you do if your dignity could be stripped away with a single look, a single word? Would you stay silent, or would you stand up? This story isn't just Evelyn's. It's ours, a mirror held up to society. And if it unsettled you, good. That means you're awake. Don't let this end here. Share her story. Talk about it, because awareness is a first step to change. The final shot lingers on Evelyn's window, once glowing warmly for her neighbors. Now the light flickers softly, fragile but unbroken, a reminder that even in the deepest humiliation, there is still a spark of humanity worth protecting. Fade to black.